Hi everyone, and welcome back to Tuesdays at 2 with Haven. My name is Julie, and I am here today to talk to you all about rugs and placements and sizes. So let's go ahead and jump right in. We will take a look here at some of our photos and kind of get some things up on our screen for you to give a little view of what we're talking about. So for starters, we're going to talk about rug piles. There's three basic piles of rug. You're going to have a low pile, medium pile, and a high pile. So low pile or flat pile rugs are going to be about 1/4 inch or shorter. They're typically really good for use like indoor outdoor rugs, high traffic areas. They're pretty easy to clean, but they're not always super cozy. So while low pile rugs are great, you just want to keep that in consideration if you're ever going to opt to use one. Medium pile and high pile rugs are going to be anything that's 1/4 inch in thickness or higher, and that's just in like the plush size of it. But medium pile rugs tend to have a little bit more thickness in them. They can be comfortable to walk on. They can make your space feel warm and inviting. So always a good combination to use that one in spaces like living rooms, dining rooms, and even in bedrooms there's a great use of that space as well. Then you've got high pile rugs, more plush in their overall look. They tend to have a lot more texture. And while high pile rugs can have a really luxurious feeling and they can create an elevated look in a room, these rugs are a lot harder to clean. And because of their organic fibers and like the hairs and the top and the length of them, they don't always look perfect. So something that's definitely a personal touch if you want that. I always like the comfort of a high pile rug, especially in a bedroom, really good in a living room as well. So keep that in consideration. If it's something that you want to do to actually like warm and invite the space a little bit more and have a little bit more luxury, high pile rugs are great for those rooms. Let's go on here. We'll take a look at different shapes of rugs that there are. So your two most basic shapes for rugs are going to be rectangle and circle. You'll find these all the time online. They're going to be in stock in stores, really easy to follow along. Your rectangle rugs are going to start around a 3x5 as like an average start of the basic rectangle rug, I'm sorry, mixing up my words, rectangle rugs. And so if you start there, you kind of build up. You go from a 3x5 up to 4x6, 5x7, 5x8, 6x9, 8x10, and then they get really large. They'll go up to about a 10x15 you can still find pretty reasonably online. So those are a pretty standard rectangle rug size. For your circle rugs, those are going to come in sizing of the diameter. So if you see it's going to say a 4-foot or an 8-foot rug, that's the overall diameter of the rug. These ones are used really well in spaces. If you have a bay window or a really squared off space, like in that top photo, breaking up those linear lines with a round rug is really, really great. So super usual spaces to use those in are going to be dining rooms, living rooms, even in bedrooms. You can get playful with a round rug in a bedroom. I always love that look as well. And let's go here. We're going to take a look. I'll show you about some more challenging spaces and what you can do with these kind of rugs. So if you have a long oblong space or something that calls for an unusual rug size, I would recommend that you look at floor tiles. So floor is commercial grade carpet tiles that you build together to create the rug size. So if you have a long bedroom and it's about a 9-foot wide by a 4-foot wide rug would be ideal, but that's not an easy thing to find. You can create that size with floor tile, and they do custom cuts and you can do all kinds of fun patterns with them. So always a really good place to start if you have an unusual rug size would be using floor tiles. And then on the lower photo there, you can see that we layered 2 hydrungs under this dining room table. I love this look. Anything oblong that you can do to refresh a space when it's, again, very open, this would be really good for a room that's going to have just like an open floor plan, no definition between the living room and dining room. Using hydrungs to create that oblong shape really does a lot in terms of creating the interest under the dining room, but again, not adding more linear lines to an already very squared off space, as most homes are built that way. So fun and interesting, and definitely adds an element of interest, kind of puts some of that art down to the floor, which we're going to talk about a little bit down the road here too. Let's go on to our next photo here and talk about rug runners. So runners are on trend, and they are not just for hallways and kitchens anymore. They are being used in all kinds of creative ways to create little subspaces inside larger spaces. So in the top photo, which you can kind of see, although I know that the live video is over it, there's two chairs sitting over where the rug runner is sitting, and it's really defining a seating space versus that whole family room game table space. It's just creating a different look. So it didn't have as much room to go wide with the rug, so that narrow 2.5-foot runner really did exactly what we needed it to do, but also in the length, it's still 8 feet long. So it does a lot of the defining in that space for you. And in the lower photo, you can see that this was more of a bowling alley style room and a little bit hard to, even design for a designer. But what we decided to do was not impede on the walk space with an extra large, oversized rug that was really gonna kill the walk room. We wanted to leave that alley there so that people could still travel through, but still create the softness with the sofas. Again, really sophisticated look. It came out really just clean and neat and very different. So rug runners are definitely coming in. A fun idea for a rug runner too, if you're thinking about it in an office, you don't always have to have a rug under your desk space necessarily, but if you have a long, low bookcase and it's just sitting under a window, put a rug runner right in front of the bookcase. Just creates a whole new element of interest in that room altogether. So a nice little tip there for you. Let's go on to here and let's talk about rug placements and sizing. So rug placement is something that not everyone finds intuitive. So let's just review this a little bit, starting with the bedrooms. In bedrooms, you really want your rug to define the bed space and the sleep space. There's a couple of rules that you can apply and you can really pick which one speaks to you the best. Typically, you're either gonna start your rug all the way up at the nightstands, as in this little photograph here, or about 2/3 to halfway under the bed and then out the sides, down and around the foot. So you're framing the bed with your rug. It should almost always go, underneath and horizontal, but if you have a nice long room, you can do a vertical, and I'll show you that in one of our next photos here. In living rooms, you're gonna want the rug to also define the space and really create, the overall aesthetic for the room. But you want to make sure that your rug size is applicable in terms of getting all the furniture on it. So you want to have about at least the first 2 legs and maybe 6 to 8 inches of the furniture up to and over your rug edge. So make sure your rug is big enough to define all of that. If you are starting with some furniture that you already have and you're going to keep that 80-inch sofa, just note that you're probably going to want to go with something like a 6x9 rug, because you're going to want the rug to go a little longer than your 80-inch sofa out and around and really define the room again. So you can work backwards in your sizing if you need to find the appropriate size for your space as well. And then dining rooms. You definitely want to make sure that when you're choosing a rug for a dining room space, if it's not like the oblong that we just talked about, that the rug is big enough that you can get the table and all of the chairs inside the rug. So you don't want anything on the outside. Don't want chair legs hanging off the ends. It just doesn't look as polished. So make sure that you're choosing the optimal size to get all of the furniture onto the rug for that one. Little tips and tricks, typical rug sizes for bedrooms that you should think about really is based on the size of the room, which then kind of dictates the size of the bed and will also dictate the size of the rug. So those 3 things can speak to each other, and they actually do so quite frequently. If you have a twin size bed, you're probably going to be around a 4x6 to a 5x7 rug. A full size bed is going to need a 5x7 or a 5x8. A queen bed is going to use usually a 6x9. It can go down to a 5x8 if your bedroom's a little smaller, and it can also go up as well, but typically you sit right around the 6x9 for a queen bed. A king bed's gonna call for a 6x9, 8x10, and larger from there. So those are pretty standard in terms of getting the right sizing on there. And then working through again with your living room furniture and working into the dining table to get your appropriate sizes on that one. But those are some good tips and tricks for you. So let's go on to our next photograph here. And this is what I was saying about the bedroom layout. This was a nice wide and long bedroom, so I went with really long definition on this rug. Again, a high pile, that really long hair viscose, and that luxury room that we just created. I mean, it's so sophisticated. So you bringing in some of that texture and really putting that not just in your art and on the various levels of the pillows and all over the bed, but on the floor too. It makes a big impact. And in the middle photo there, you can see that this is our living room where all of our furniture is touching the rug, and that's how it should be placed. You should really be forward thinking in terms of making sure that it's big enough. There's also no right or wrong in terms of this can be your opinion. If you want to get a larger rug and then get your sofa all the way up on it so that the back feet are on there too, that's still really applicable in design right now. This is just one that we're seeing more frequently than not, is that the first two legs are going to be on there. And then back to that bottom photo where you see the dining room, and that's set perfectly where we have all the chairs and the table on that. That's just the ideal way to have that lined up for you in your dining room rugs. Now let's get into some of our more fun rug styling, and this would be a lot of the layered rugs, and layered rugs are happening in every single room of the house right now. So it's a lot of fun. You can really dress up what you currently have by layering in a new rug versus having to replace the old rug, or if you have like a stain you're trying to hide, this is a really good technique too. But layering your rugs is, it can be really well executed when you have the right elements in place. You want to start with a low pile rug, and then that would be your base. You can layer with a low pile, medium, or high pile, but you really don't want to start with a high pile rug and then layer a low pile. It just doesn't have the same look. It will be a little bit, wonky and wobbly. So start with a low piled rug and then bring the interest in on there. So in this top photo, we took two low pile rugs. They were parallel to each other, but just slightly askew so that they weren't symmetrical. And that created a really interesting look here, especially that photograph is like, it just grabs your attention. In the middle photo, this was a living room that wasn't super wide, it was long, but not too wide. So that's a 6x9 rug on the bottom, but the 6 was the right size for the width. I couldn't have gone too much further in length without hitting the walk space. So we really wanted to play into that oblong space, and we layered in the hide rug on top. Again, creates a really interesting element of interest, brings something unique down to the floor, and has that really high-end finished look to it. And then in the bottom photo there, that's another bedroom space where we kind of got playful. The low pile rug defining the bed, and then that high pile smaller rug layering the bench space to create a separate seating area. But again, speaking to each other seamlessly, it looks really, really good. So you can have a lot of fun with that kind of stuff in terms of layering as well. And the last tip I want to talk to you guys about is how to use your rugs as art and as interest. So the top photo there, and it's a little bit cut off by the video, but this was a bedroom that probably could have fit a full-size bed. We did have the day bed in there, and what we did is we chose the right rug size that could grow into the room, but kept the day bed just slightly off center so that the rug framed the outer edge and came down, really pulled the whole room towards you. So when you walk in, it has that nice warmth to it, an interesting layout, and it still does all the heavy lifting for you in terms of warming up the floor too. And then in that center photo, this was a room that was actually, it had a bay window, and a little bit challenging in terms of how to get the proper rug to lay. So we solved for that by doing an angled rugs. And angled rugs can be a lot of fun. So definitely play with them, try them in a couple different rooms. They work really well under full-size beds a lot of the time, or even a queen bed. But that's about where you can start to really play with it, as bedrooms are a great space to start. And in that lower photo, you can see this is, again, just a very standard rectangle rug that's under the bed, except instead of framing it entirely all the way around, we just did a little bit more asymmetrical, where we took a little bit off the side and shifted it over, really pulled the room towards the door for you, and created that interesting look in the space there. And then one other thing I want to point out for you in terms of how your rugs can go is that you can really start to work with them. Make sure that you're picking rugs that have pattern, texture, interest. Choose something that can be artistic. Rugs are so easy to replace. It's a lot easier to replace your rug than it is to repaint your room. So if you want to go with a bold color, go ahead and bring that down to your floor. Create that artistic look and really do something sophisticated. Don't be afraid of taking a chance here, but make sure that you're looking at how everything talks to each other in the room, and then define what kind of style you're going to go for. Is it boho? Are you going to do a farm chic? Is it going to be modern? So picking the right rug to match the look of the space is also something you can consider, but have a ton of fun with it. There is so much you can do. Rugs can be the most interesting part of a room. You can really design all the way around them if you start there. I hope you learned some good tips and tricks from us today, and I hope that you will join us again next week for our Tuesdays at 2 with Lydia, who will be speaking a lot more about small spaces. So if you've got a challenging small room, you're not going to want to miss this one. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next week.